Alrighty, Fletch, we have a very special guest now. It is True Crime Tuesday, but we've got a spin on it this week.
Yes.
We're not going for true crime. We're going for true crime
Fiction?
of the novel variety. Yes, and we're joined now by, well, he wears many hats, but in this case, author Bryan Brown. Welcome to the Run Home.
Hi, fellas. How are we?
Going good, Brian. Going good. Now, I was just saying off air, this book, okay, is this, I mean, we know it's fiction, but it says in here there's murder, there's drugs, there's lies. Is this something based on your life, or is it all purely made up?
Could have been set in a football club, couldn't it?
It could have. There'll be a couple of other things in there too. Now, where'd you get the inspiration from?
Well, I like crime. I like reading crime. It's a big genre. I read all sorts of stuff, but I like crime because crime gives us the opportunity to look at how bad things are, and we're not a part of it. And then the baddie gets his comeuppance, and it makes us feel a bit relieved about society and makes us feel that there's justice going on there. But it's all. I mean, I've been around for a while, and I've spent my time growing up, telling stories for 50 years in film and television, and I've worked with writers, and I buy the rights to books and work on all that. So, telling stories is just telling stories is what I like doing and what I do. And I guess in this, the characters are drawn from observations of people, and then and then I let my imagination go and have fun.
So were you able to, like, writing the book to get some material, do you have any mates who were coppers, or do you have any mates who back in the day were a bit shady, or is it just all off the top of your head?
No, a lot of it is about how we grow up. And areas I grew up in, wasn't desperately bad, but I saw how easy it is to get into trouble when you're a young bloke if you haven't got much supervision, and if you're not looked after properly, it's easy to make a blue, and then you make a bigger blue, and then perhaps a bigger blue, and then it's very hard to come back from.
Yeah.
I've grown up being aware of that as a young fella. I spend a lot of time, because of the game I'm in. If I do a crime movie or something, there's always research that goes into it, and you're talking with cops. When I do this sort of stuff, I do have access to a detective in Sydney, and I run everything past him, and the thoughts I have on stuff like that, and he tells me if I'm pulling my put or it's all right.
Do you have to sling him? Like, does he want credits in the back of the book or anything?
No, but I do thank him. Yeah. Like I thank, I thank him, and also there's a lady, federal police, that I needed to know something about in the book, which was to do with sex trafficking and stuff, and I needed to get that right and where that's moved to. And the cops are very helpful. There's no question about it. I think there's two reasons. One, they want you to get it right, not put stupid stuff out there. And two, I think they like people writing about this because it's a warning. It helps people know that, be aware of certain things that they're doing, or they might, don't walk down a dark alley at night and somewhere. They like, crime does help people with a warning.
Bryan, the book's based up in northern New South Wales. Does that hold a special place for you? Have you spent a lot of time up northern New South Wales?
Yeah, I do. I've had a farm up there for 40 years, and I do spend time up there, and I surf up there on the north coast. And I've got to be careful in not naming where it is, because there's a bit of who's doing what to who and who's paying in this, and I don't want to get myself into strife.
Hey, Bryan, how long did it take you to write this? Because we hear about authors and they get the writer's block and stuff, or do you just get on a roll? How long did it take you to write this?
Yeah, that's right. I do get on a roll. This took about 4 or 5 months, but I only write for an hour and a half at the most, and not every day, maybe 2 or 3 days. I tend to come up with a scenario that starts, like in this, the first 3 or 4 pages is a very arresting start to this. and then there's three characters involved there who would never have ever been with each other at all in normal circumstances, but in this situation they're together, and that gives me three characters to then start to explore, and I let the characters take me on a journey. I don't plot anything out. I just let them just go along, and I write with one finger because I can't type, and it's the finger on my right hand alongside my thumb, and so that's one letter after another. But I think that pacing helps me not get in front of the story. I think, but if I was double-handed typing away, then I might just sort of race over stuff. But I think being deliberate like this just helps me a bit. Yeah, but I don't know where I'm going. I let it unfold.
Does this book have room for a prequel or a sequel, or is this one of a series? Any plans moving forward?
No, there's no plans on it, but you're right. I mean, there are characters in this that I could decide I want to go further with in something. I mean, I don't have plans for it, but it could. It also lends itself to an 8-hour series, but I don't have plans for that or anything. I just had the joy of writing this and telling this story. That's really what it is at the moment to me, for sure.
What's harder, Brian, acting or writing?
Well, look, they both require disciplines. You can't fake it. You can't treat it with disdain, or when I'm doing a film, you spend time. You got to know your dialogue. You got to know what the story is. If your characters, you got to sort of work out where you touch that character to play it. And when I'm writing a story, I've got to feel like these are real people and that I'm telling. But I got to say, when they say action on the camera, for me, it's playtime. So, I love all that.
I saw here, Brian, that you were born in Penania. So should I assume that you're a mad Bulldogs fan?
No, and I want a lot of sympathy. I'm a Dragons fan.
Oh, well, we got a little bit of sympathy. You don't have to play Magic Round next year, so you don't have to go up there. No, just the poor.
But what I do know is we're going to win the comp this year.
Oh,
so it's really,
okay.
I feel good.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Is that like second grade or the NRL? Which?
I think it's toddlers. Yeah.
Hey, Brian, I've actually seen you a couple of times. I would say 3 times now at Golden Century. It doesn't the Chinese restaurant in Sussex Street.
Yeah, I know.
Obviously, it's not there
Right.
anymore. Is that is Chinese your go-to cuisine?
No, but that place was an institution. That was where you're going to meet someone, particularly on something like a Sunday or something. It's like where you're going to meet, and the Golden Century always knew you were going to, be looked after there. It had character. It was always a great place to go to. No, I don't have any particular go-tos. I'm fairly easygoing. I don't really care where I am or what I eat.
No, that's good. What about? How long did you live in? Did you ever live full time in the States?
I had a house in Malibu there for a number of years because I was going backwards and forwards, and I spent a lot of time in the States. But I never actually saw myself as properly living there and becoming being American almost. But I spent a lot of time there, and it was very good to me, and I got a lot out of the place. But I if the States and LA are two different things. LA is a very strange town. Nice to walk into and have a bit of fun in and whatever, but it is a very strange town in that it's just all about one thing, and I think that's hard for people. So I enjoyed any time I was there, but I never really wanted to live there.
So did you surf there too? Like, did you surf at Malibu? Is there waves along there?
No, I didn't.
No,
I didn't surf there at all. I'd stopped surfing at that stage, and which was stupid because if any wave was the right wave for me, it was Malibu.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't at that time. And at that see, I'd be going in to do a movie or television or something like that, and that took up the days. And then when it was finished, almost the day it's finished, I'd leave. So it didn't lend itself to that.
Brian, I most recently saw you on the Stan series Court playing the Prime Minister of Australia. Now, did you base that character off any Real Prime Minister of Australia?
All of them.
I thought there was a little bit of John Howard with the Australian tracksuit. He used to rock that a bit.
Well, the tracksuit, yeah, that's pretty easy to think of. I didn't act, I mean, I know John wore that a lot, but maybe that was what led me to it. But I said, if I'm having a tracksuit, I want it on all the time. The tracksuit gave me something to work with. Yeah.
Are you a big Ian Thorpe fan in real life? Because there was a lot of references to watching Ian Thorpe's Sydney 2000 performances.
I know. Well, I mean, it was pretty bloody fantastic, and I did go to the Olympics almost every day, and it was pretty hard not to be wrapped in Ian. Also, the other thing was Ian grew up out in the area that I grew up in. He was 1.5 miles up the road. He actually wasn't invented by the time I left, I wouldn't have thought. But he's a Westie boy.
Yeah. So, Brian, 25 years ago, the movie Two Hands, and you played Pando. It was one of the great Australian films. Why then, if you're a Dragons fan, why was your stubby cooler and Parramatta Eels when you were sitting up there at the cross there behind the desk?
Yeah, because I think we wanted it to be, like if I had the Dragons, it would be a little bit west. I think Parramatta planted me better.
Right. Okay.
And I think they wanted, we wanted Pando to be a definite character. If he was going to come from anywhere, let's say he came from Para.
Yeah, that's where all the crims are. You're right. So, what are your memories from that movie, Brian? Because I'm from Bondi, and when we got to see, visions of that was probably the first movie I'd ever seen when Bondi was on camera. What were your memories of that movie?
Yeah, it is great that we put those places on camera. I mean, I love Bondi. I remember my mum used to take me and my sister out there a couple of times a year, and then we'd have to get the bus coming back into the city to get the train. I'd look out the window and I'd see all these little blonde-haired boys and girls and think, why aren't they going home? Oh, they live here. How good is that?
That was Fletch.
So I do love Bondi. I do love Bondi, and it's a very Sydney thing. I remember a lot about that movie, but basically the biggest two things I remember was Heath and Rose Byrne. They were just such wonderful young up-and-coming actors and actresses, and it was a terribly sad thing when we found out that Heath had died. He was a great young man, and Rose is just fantastic in anything she do. I remember the movie a lot about the beginning of their careers. I also remember it for things like origami and pterodactyl, two things I didn't know what I was saying.
That's right. Who did you have anything to do with the writing of that, Brian?
No. Gregor Jordan wrote it.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything to do. You always change a couple of things to make them fit you, but really it was Gregor wrote a very engaging story.
Brian, I'm a slightly different age demographic to Fletch. So the first movie I remember you in was Along Came Polly. The cast on that is A grade. Have you got any stories on set of Ben Stiller or Jennifer Aniston? Even Philip Seymour Hoffman, the cast on that show.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I remember. One of the things I remember with Alec Baldwin, Alec was playing the boss of, I think he was the boss of Ben. And I remember they were having a conversation in the toilet. And at the end of they'd shaken himself, Alec gave Ben a tap on the bum, and I remember thinking, that's really a great little thing to do, standing at the trough and then he's tapping a bloke on the bum beside you.
Yeah. Have you tried that? Have you done that again, like maybe at the airport or a Caltex or something?
I'm not going there, but I did think that was really clever of Alec. Yeah. Jennifer, I mean, they're all lovely. Jennifer loved knitting. She would sit between takes, just sitting around knitting over and over. She just loved knitting. You wouldn't necessarily, it's interesting the things that people do that you wouldn't necessarily put with them. Ben is one of the funniest blokes I've ever seen on screen. He's quiet off screen. He's quiet when you're sitting around. But there was one time we were on a boat and there's a storm and all that, and he's at the wheel and it was only meant to be a short few seconds scene or something. But when they actually finished what they got, they let the camera keep rolling, and Ben just did about 5 minutes of impros around us, a wheel of a boat that's in high seas, and you couldn't contain yourself. It was like, I imagine, Charlie Chaplin. He was incredibly comic.
Now, Brian, while we're reminiscing, can we talk about Cocktail? Can you tell us a couple of Tom Cruise stories? Is he funny? Is he aggressive? I know he's very short. What's he like behind the camera?
Well, I mean, everyone will tell you he works hard. He's easy to get along with. No one's going to come up with it. He's just a really open, hard-working guy. But the biggest thing about Cocktail is that the script never had the bottle throwing in it. That was never in it, which was one of the biggest things about that movie, that gave it such a lift and whatever. But Tom went out at the end of 1 week of rehearsal and must have gone to some bar on a Friday night with friends. And he came in on the Monday and he said, "I've just seen this bloke throwing bottles around. It's sensational. Why don't we do that?" And so the decision was made that we would. And we started then the next day starting to practice throwing bottles to each other. And we had about 3 weeks before we had to do the scenes in the bar. So we had a chance to practice every day at lunchtime or whatever in your own house. In my hotel room, I had bottles and glasses all throughout the room. If I got up in the middle of the night for a pee, I'd throw a few glasses, have a pee, throw a few more glasses, and go back to bed. And we got incredibly good at it. Yeah, incredibly good at it.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
We did things in unison, which no one had ever seen before. And the long and the short of it was, I got a lot of free drinks all around the world for about the next 10 years.
Yeah, I was about to ask you that. And so, Brian, you got a really broad Australian accent. Like, it's really strong. Did you ever have issues over in America, like when you were giving out like lines and stuff, doing your dialogue? Did the people say, "Oh, hang on, just slow down a bit," or anything like that?
No, they didn't. No one ever did. I mean, Cocktail, he was written as an American bartender, and they asked me to do it, and I just started speaking, and no one said anything. The first movie I had over there was a movie called FX that I was given, and he was an American special effects man. And I just started talking. No one ever said anything about it. So I've actually never played with an American accent.
No, that was my next question. Can you do accents?
No, that's probably the reason why I don't.
No. And you haven't even picked up a little bit of American twang or the Atlantic accent. You're very Australian, very Pananian.
Well, Yanks are very Yank, So, I guess I am Australian, whatever. No, that's the Irish are very Irish. It's just that you can't understand the bloody word they say.
While you're living in Malibu, Brian, did you have any pinch yourself moments, maybe a house party or an interaction with Hollywood celebs or sports stars or anything of that ilk?
Yeah, there was always someone's place you're at lunch or whatever, and there'd always be very well-known people around. I think the one that was that sort of I was very pleased to see was the American actor, goes back a bit, Tony Curtis. And that's going back a long way. But he was a massive star in the 50s and the 60s, massive. And I really enjoyed the opportunity to be able to tell him that I'd loved all the stuff that he'd done. But there was always people, you'd go to those, there'd be Whoopi Goldberg, or there'd be always people around there, or either in a coffee shop or whatever. Malibu's a very laid back place, but a lot of the actors and stuff like being up around there and musos.
Now the NRL, we're heading over to Vegas for round one. Do you think the Yanks will
about that?
Yeah, do you think the Yanks will get around it?
Well, their football's huge. So it's our job is to promote it as heavily as we can. I think it's a great job. It's great that we're in there.
Yeah.
But you better turn on a couple of great games, and I'm sure Vlandis doesn't muck around. For goodness sake, he was at the dinner at the White House the other day. He's only got to go. He only needs to be with the Pope now, and he's done the Queen, the Prime Minister, the President, and he's got the trifecta up if you can get the poker.
Yeah, and
That's decent.
he said, I heard he say he stole something from
Yeah,
there.
he stole some cutlery.
He stole some cutlery.
Yeah. Have you ever crossed paths with our Lord V'landys?
He's a mate of mine.
Really?
We've-
Okay. Oh, you're
we've
both
known each
Dragons.
other.
You're both Dragons
We're
supporters.
both
There
Dragons.
you go. All right.
And of course, he's a terrible driver, and of course, whenever he drives me out there, we go around the airport about 3 times before we can get out there. It's terrible.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, thanks for joining us,
Yeah.
Brian. For all our listeners, you've done the audiobook as well. Is that correct?
I've done the audio book. Yep.
In
That's
that
right.
Aussie accent. Beautiful.
So that was enjoyable. I don't necessarily enjoy doing those things, but they said you've got to do it, Brian. So I did it.
And so the book's out now, obviously. Have you got plans for what's the next 12 months look like for Bryan Brown? Any movie scripts come
You're
across your
traveling with
desk?
PVL, surely.
Well, I finished earlier in the year that movie with Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell called Anyone But You, and that'll come out. So either coming out middle of December or Boxing Day. That's a big romantic comedy, and a great Australian book called The Boy Who Swallowed the Universe. We did it as an 8-part series, and Netflix put that out. We'll put that out in January, and then I'm meant to be working with my old mate Bruce Beresford, who did Breaker Morant, and I haven't worked with him in 40 years, and I'm meant to be doing a movie with him in February. So,
Oh, you're busy.
yeah, I've got enough to keep me busy when I get out of the water.
Beautiful. Just for all our listeners before we let you go, Brian, have you got any Peter V'landys stories? We've got a lot of rugby league fans listening.
Well, we all know he can't keep his shirt in his pants. We all know that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he because his pants are too low or his shirts are too long? There's something going on there. I think he needs to put his pants up a
Let's
bit
get
higher.
it right.
Tuck them in your undies.
He's just a dag.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple as that.
He's very good company.
He's probably never ever been able to keep his shirt properly in his pants.
Yeah.
But if you saw him at school, it'd be the same.
He considers himself a bit of comedian too, doesn't he? Does he try your joke? Does he try his jokes on you?
No, he does make me laugh.
Yeah.
He does make me laugh. Yeah, he's a lovely fella, that's for sure.
All right, Brian. Well, thank you for joining
Thanks,
us on
mate.
the run home. For all our listeners, you can buy The Drowning. That's available where all good books are sold. No doubt we'll all be following that, Brian. And good luck on the upcoming movie that's being released and all your future endeavours.
Thanks for the conversation, boys. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. See you, mate.
Likewise. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. See you, fellas.
Bye, mate.